Welcome aboard, Captain.
Another site found, but I cannot yet tell whether the others survived. Still, it holds valuable information. I hope you will find more. The network is indicating more of my people's technology, but the images I am receiving are fragmented, repeating. I am struggling to locate them precisely.
Fragmented images? Why would that happen?
I can only theorize that the locations are deep and shielded by a refractive material. Perhaps amongst large crystal formations. Searches have been useful, but ultimately I have no definitive evidence as to the fate of my people. The network I hoped to rejoin may no longer exist. I cannot feel it.
There could be a million reasons for that. Like, what if the network had a system update? They're on version 2001.4 and you're still on version 14.2.
That would make me incompatible. How would I even begin to plan my upgrades?
Okay, that's not what I meant. Bad example. You still know how to get home?
Yes.
So don't give up. Go there, see for yourself what happened.
You are expressing optimism, but it is not supported by probability.
Hope isn't based on statistics. It's born from a drive for something better. There's a poem Sam loved. Hope is human. Hope is... right. Hope is the thing with feathers.
This does not match any fauna designation I can find in your PDA.
It's a line from a 19th century Earth author. Emily something. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. I promise we'll get answers one way or another, Alan.
Adding hope to your database.
Welcome aboard, Captain.
Without spy penguins, scientists may have never discovered that penguins incubate their eggs in small cave burrows, often alongside thermal lily roots. dangerous weather approaching. Seek shelter.
Welcome aboard, Captain.
Warning. 30 seconds of oxygen remaining. Warning. 30 seconds of oxygen remaining. Warning. 30 seconds of oxygen remaining.
squid shark is one of Subnautica's most controversial creatures, not because of its terrifying teeth or its electrically charged tentacles, or even because it could make you spill your coffee, but because of a specific word used to describe it: Leviathan. Leviathan-class creatures have a reputation as massive beasts that dwarf everything around them, with even the passive ones instilling a sense of awe at their sheer size. But the squid shark is different. It's not really that big compared to true leviathans at 11 meters long, but its databank entry in the PDA says the creature is a leviathan-class predator at the smaller end of the scale. So that's the end of the discussion, right? The squid shark is small, but it's a leviathan. Well, not quite, as when you search under the leviathan tab, the creature is mysteriously missing, with it actually being included under carnivores. So that begs the question, what makes a leviathan a leviathan? Is it just size, or are other features important when it comes to deciding what classification a creature falls into, as it seems not even the PDA can decide where the squid shark belongs. And just by looking at the number of comments I've received asking where my squid shark video is, it seems the community isn't sure either. So let's look at all the leviathans in Subnautica and Below Zero and see if we can find some common traits to help us decide where the squid shark should fit in. Across the two games, excluding the squid shark, we have 12 living creatures that are given the leviathan class description, with 2 more extinct leviathan fossils found in the Lost River and this one that belongs in an Ice Age movie. But unfortunately, only one of these actually gives a definition of what makes a creature a leviathan. In the Reaper's databank entry, leviathan class species are described as vast organisms at the top of their respective food chains, but that's all we really have to go on. So do you have to be dangerous to be a leviathan? When we think of creatures at the top of their food chains, we naturally think of apex predators like lions, but we also know reefbacks and glow whales are completely harmless, well, at least to us anyway, and we still consider them to be leviathans, and that's because they're still on top of their own food chains. While they might not be typical meat-eating predators, they still eat microorganisms or fish whilst being too large to be eaten themselves. So within their own natural environments, they are the most dominant creatures, even though we might not consider them typical predators. But rather ironically, the Reaper databank entry where we found this definition is probably the place it's most easily challenged. If we look in the lava zone and the Lost River, we find numerous Reaper skeletons littering the seafloor, which have all fallen victim to sea dragon leviathans. So is the Reaper really at the top of its food chain? It could be argued that Reapers are not typically found in this environment under normal circumstances, so aren't technically part of this food chain. But no matter how you look at it, they've become prey for something bigger. And if we look at the Calicera, the creature has an obvious defense measure in place in the form of its thick armor plating, and while this might help the creature deal with atmospheric pressure, it's also a great shield against other creatures that might want to eat it, suggesting something might like to snack on them from time to time. A better definition might be to say leviathans are dominant in their home environments, but that they can still fall prey to other larger leviathan class creatures but face no danger from standard sized threats in their typical biomes. When it comes to squid sharks, they can be found in the lily pad islands and caves along with the deep twisty bridges, and in these environments there are no other creatures that can realistically challenge them, which would make them like mini leviathans. So what other features do the leviathans have in common? Well, the ability to move around freely in open water would be an important one. All the leviathans must at least be able to do that, right? Well, the sea treader would beg to differ. These guys don't even have fins and are stuck on the seafloor moving around on legs, and they're still classified as leviathans by the PDA. Alright, well maybe how you move doesn't matter, but surely you have to be able to move in some way. Well, that's where the vent garden will prove you wrong. Anchored over thermal vents, you will never see these guys move in game. Now this one might not exactly be true, as the juveniles of the species can be found swimming around and training their tentacles for later in life, but in lore terms we don't know if these fully grown adults will ever move again after becoming anchored over a thermal vent. In gameplay terms at least, we know these guys are never moving and act more like plants, but we still call them leviathans. Okay, so at the very least we should be able to agree that leviathan status isn't affected by how or how much a creature moves, but come on, they must at least have to live in the ocean. Oh god damn it, the ice worm proves that you don't even have to live in water to be a leviathan, as although the promo art for the game shows them swimming, this isn't the case in game or in the lore, and if we include our frozen friend, you can even extend that definition to creatures that live between both the land and sea, as it's widely believed that the frozen leviathan would hunt in the water and rest on land. In an alternate universe where this cut creature called the Kite-winged Skyray made it into the game, we could have even had a flying leviathan, but it just wasn't meant to be. So looking at all the leviathans across both games, the only thing we can say is that all the creatures are incredibly diverse and don't really have anything in common across the whole group. Sure, some might have similar features, but they definitely aren't uniform across the whole class. So that leads us back to the Reaper databank definition, but more specifically, two key words: vast organisms. The only thing these creatures share is their huge size, but how big is big enough to be considered a Leviathan class creature? Well, at the top of the range for living Leviathans, the Sea Emperor clocks in between 160 and 200 meters long, dwarfing Earth's biggest ever recorded creature, the blue whale, which are about 27 meters in length. And if we look at 45-46B's fossils, the gargantuan Leviathan skull alone is just under 100 meters long, with the whole creature thought to be between 1,100 and 1,300 meters in total. The sheer size of this creature is hard to comprehend. The world's current tallest building, the Burj Khalifa, is 828 meters tall, so even if the gargantuan Leviathan was at the smaller projected scale of 1,100 meters, you'd still need 270 meters more to visualize the creature's total size. This shows that there isn't really a cap for how big a Leviathan can be. Truth be told, these kind of creatures probably deserve a separate classification, something more akin to a hyper-Leviathan class predator. On the other end of the scale, the smallest official Leviathan is the Sea Treader at 20 meters tall and 20 meters long, which compared to all the other creatures sounds pretty small, but it still makes them around 4 times bigger than an elephant. So how does our squid shark compare? Well, unfortunately, not very well. The squid shark is only 11 meters long, and while that does make it around the same size as a London double-decker bus, that still makes it around half the size of the smallest Leviathan. Even the next smallest in the glow whale is 30 meters long, which makes it 3 times the size of the squid shark. It's hard to stress that this is also way below the average size for all known living Leviathans. If we take the average across all 12 adults, we get a number just short of 79 meters, and even excluding the outlier of the extra-large Sea Emperor, this still comes in at just shy of 70 meters overall, which is still way higher than the squid shark. Although not explicitly stated in the PDA, Leviathans could also be classified on a weight basis, which could explain how they can range so greatly in size. Anything that surpasses a certain amount of weight could automatically be classified as a Leviathan. For example, an eel-like creature might be long and thin, but it might not be very heavy, whereas a Sea Treader might be short, but has more mass. So after looking at all the features that might define a Leviathan, unfortunately for the squid shark, only size or weight seems to matter, and in my opinion, it just isn't big enough. While the creature is dominant within its territory, extending the definition of Leviathan to any creature on top of its respective food chain doesn't really feel appropriate, because where would that end? You could then argue that the Stalker is a Leviathan because it is the dominant creature in the kelp forest, and that's just a bit silly. It also seems that the developers agree, as they didn't classify the squid shark as a Leviathan either outside of its initial entry. So I'm sorry, squid shark, just as Pluto is no longer considered a planet, I now officially declare you not a Leviathan, and that's why I didn't cover you in the original Leviathan series. I'll be interested to see what you guys think about this one. Do you agree with me that the squid shark isn't a Leviathan, or do you still think it is? Let me know down below. And if you want to know more about I have made videos covering every single Leviathan. I have made videos covering every single Leviathan, living or dead, in the world of Subnautica, and after diving deep into 45-46B seas, I'm going to give you my ultimate worst to first Leviathan tier list. Not including any fossils or dead ones, that doesn't really seem fair, as they're not here to defend themselves. Now, I'm not going to be using stats or statistics, or even how many teeth they have to decide each Leviathan's place on this list. I'm just going to rank them based on how much I personally like them, so obviously your list might be different to mine, so be sure to let me know your order down below. Coming in as first loser, we have the glow whale. Now, I don't have anything particularly against this creature's design, I just think it's a poor man's reefback. It feels a little too like something we'd see here on Earth, and against everything else on this list, I just find it the least exciting. You do get to pet it, so bonus points for that, and I do like how they jump out of the water with some great acrobatics, but if one Leviathan has to go, for me, this one has to be it. The vent garden. This one was hard to place. It has a cool design and some interesting lore with the creatures anchoring themselves over thermal vents, but as the adults don't actually move in game, they're more like giant plants than what I would call a true Leviathan. It was a tough choice between this and the glow whale, but the reason I gave the vent garden the edge is simply its size and alien-like nature. When first encountering the vent garden, you get a whoa, what is that thing kind of moment, and I don't think you get that with the glow whale. The vent garden gets bonus points for being a unique creature, in that it has a mini self-contained ecosystem inside its bell, which is a really cool concept, but its inability to move in game really brings it down on this list. Now as we dip our toes in the frozen waters of Sector 0, we might have reached our first controversial ranking on this list. My third least favourite Leviathan is the Ice Worm. Now I hear you say, Aletho, what did the Ice Worm do to you to end up so far down on this list? And I think the main problem is that it's only a land-based creature. I like the Ice Worm's design, and I actually think the creature looks really cool. The general idea of something burrowing through the ice with a superheated horn is terrifying as it is epic. But in gameplay terms, I find the Ice Worm to just be outright annoying. I don't think anyone would say that Below Zero's land sections were the game's speciality, and I always find myself wanting to get back into the water as soon as possible. Ice Worms just aren't particularly fun to encounter, and I find the thrill of an ambush wears off quite quickly once you've ran into them more than a few times. And this one's a YouTuber problem, but because they're only above the ground for a small amount of time, they're a real pain to record. I just wish they could swim like it was hinted at in the Below Zero promotional art, or we had another waterbound Leviathan in Below Zero, as I think the Ice Worm takes up one of the game's Leviathan slots, but you don't really see it that often, and when you do, you don't really want to anyway. And from the frozen seas to the fiery depths, next on my list I have what is probably going to be my most controversial ranking, the Sea Dragon. The Sea Dragon has always been my least liked Leviathan from the original Subnautica. Compared to the Reaper and the Ghost Leviathan, it just never seemed as cool. I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with the Sea Dragon, I just don't like it as much as everything else on this list. It's not every day that you say the fire-breathing tentacle monster isn't the coolest creature in the game, but in this case I just don't think it is. From a lore perspective, I like how they hunt Reapers and spew molten rock, and they are definitely the most dangerous creature in the game with their ability to snipe you from far away. If there was a neutral rating for this creature, that's what I'd give it. I don't particularly like it, but I don't dislike it either. It's just kind of there. I think it does its job as a late game boss quite well, but as they normally attack you from range, you don't get that primal fear like when a Reaper grabs the front of your sea moth. This is another one of those creatures that's really annoying to record from a YouTuber's perspective because the lava zone is so dark, so that might have swayed my opinion against it, or maybe I've just become desensitized to the creature over time. Overall, the Sea Dragon gets a meh from me. From the bottom of the crater to the bottom of Sector 0, the next creature on my list is the Shadow Leviathan. Now this one I actually rank pretty similarly to the Sea Dragon. I like the creature's design, and having a glowing acid dripping mouth that sucks you straight into its stomach definitely gives the creature an air of awesomeness that most other creatures on this list fail to match. What I like most about the Shadow Leviathan is how unique the creature looks, and it really feels like something you would find in the deep dark depths of the ocean where no light or no one would dare to go. The creature's reinforced arrow-like head and long claws definitely give it an intimidating look, and there's no candidate like it when it comes to deciding who to give the horrifying space alien award to on this list. My main issue with the Shadow Leviathan is that you don't really ever get to see it. It's locked away in the last few areas of Below Zero, so you don't really get to play with it for very long before the game ends. Maybe that's kept it exotic, and that's why I've ranked it above the Sea Dragon for me. I just wish it had a bigger role in the game and didn't get stuck on the environment so much, as that really brings down the fear factor. Stomping its way onto this list, next up we have the Sea Treader, and despite being the smallest creature on this list at around 20 meters tall, I think the Sea Treader punches way above its weight on the ranking of Subnautica's Leviathans. The Sea Treader makes 4546b feel like a real world. It's the only Leviathan to walk on the seafloor, and I think that really makes it stand out from all the other creatures on this list. It feels like a creature that could really exist on some far-off planet, and proves that being the biggest doesn't necessarily make you the best. If you miss the Sea Treader path, you will never even encounter this creature in-game, and that was me on my first playthrough, and discovering it later on felt like a hidden gem of world building that I really appreciate. Knowing these majestic creatures are migrating around the seafloor and living their lives regardless of whatever you're up to really helps to bring the game to life, and proves just like here on Earth, just because a creature is big, it doesn't necessarily want to eat you, and for that reason, I really like the Sea Treader. I'd love to see more creatures that walk or scuttle along the seafloor introduced in the future, maybe a giant crab or lobster, and if all of that doesn't have you convinced, the Sea Treader is also the only creature to poop. Next on my list is the Caliceret, and this one is actually a bit of a comeback king. When I first played through Below Zero, I didn't like the Caliceret too much. I felt like it was everywhere, and the game lacked many other hostile Leviathans which took away from the overall experience, which I still think is true. But I've come to like this red boy more and more as time has gone on. I think the creature's bright colour really helps it stand out, and I like the way it looks. As a standalone creature, I really like the Calycerate, and I think the Void version is pretty cool too. I think my main issue is that it's a little bit overused in Below Zero, but that's more of a critique of Below Zero itself rather than the creature. I was honestly quite surprised that the Calycerate has ended up so high on this list, but after thinking hard about the other Leviathans, I think it's fair to give it the 5th spot. As much as I like the Sea Treader, I think the Calycerate offers more in gameplay terms, and if someone was to show me a picture of the two creatures without any prior knowledge, I'd be picking the Calycerate. As we head back closer to the surface and the safe shallows of 45-46 BCs, we encounter the Leviathan that's just missed out on a medal. The Reefback always reminds me of home. Its familiar calls mark a return to safety and brings a strange level of comfort to a weary diver. The Reefback is one of those creatures that when you first see it, you recoil in horror at how big it is and wonder if it might eat you, but as you spend more time getting to know them, you realise that they're actually gentle giants. They protect life with the plants on their back, and they can even carry you when on the surface. These submerged islands have to be one of my favourite creatures in the game. They're alien and majestic in equal measure, and while they may not have a huge amount of interactivity or direct gameplay, I just really like them, and I think they have truly earned their place on this list. For the 3rd place medal, we find ourselves at Journey's End. The Sea Emperor is Subnautica's ultimate creature, a life giver and preserver that sustains everything in the crater, a telepathic behemoth that holds the fate of a planet in its hands. I've struggled to find a good place for the Sea Emperor on this list. The creature is unique due to its position in Subnautica's plot, but it also shares a lot of the same design elements as the Sea Dragon. The Sea Emperor ultimately makes the story of Subnautica possible, but I think I prefer the design of the Reefback. I just don't think the Sea Emperor looks as good. The thing that gives the Sea Emperor its edge is its personal story of tragedy, loss, and ultimately victory in spite of the odds stacked against it. Once the baby Sea Emperors are released into the world and grow into juveniles, I think they're a little underwhelming, as they don't really do anything, which is the same for the Mother Sea Emperor, who's only ever stuck in an aquarium and swimming around in circles. But everything about the Mother Sea Emperor's story gives the species its place on this list, even if from a gameplay or visual perspective, the species isn't my favourite. The next Leviathan might be keeping you up at night, or at least might feature in a late night horror flick, and that's because our silver medal goes to none other than the Ghost Leviathan. This creature has always been one of my favourites, and I still remember encountering one for the first time when diving in the Lost River in my Cyclops. Back then I was terrified of getting too close, but after spending some time together, me and Ghosty are now the best of friends. Its bioluminescent design and giant body make the Ghost Leviathan one of the planet's most standout creatures, and nothing can make the hairs on the back of your neck stand up quite like the scream of a Ghost Leviathan. Lore-wise, the Ghost Leviathan is one of the creatures we know the most about, from laying its eggs in the giant cove tree to outgrowing the crater and being forced to live in the void. The Ghost Leviathan always was and still remains one of my favourite creatures on 45-46b, and is worthy of the runner-up medal on this list. And now the king ascends his throne, as if there could ever have been any doubt as who was going to be number 1 on this list. My ultimate Subnautica Leviathan is the Reaper, the game's most iconic creature and credited by the developers themselves as being one of the main reasons the game succeeded financially. Whether that's terrifying first-time streamers or creeping up on grizzled Subnautica veterans, the roar of a Reaper is unmatched when instilling fear in Subnautica players. The Reaper's design is perfectly alien, and it's the creature to send you scurrying home to the safe shallows with your tail between your legs when you try to get too close to the Aurora. The Reaper being the first truly huge dangerous creature that you encounter gives it a unique place in the memory of everyone who plays Subnautica, and for some who find the game just too scary, it might be the only hostile Leviathan they ever see. Its tough mandibles, razor-sharp teeth and super
Welcome aboard, Captain.
New creature discovered.
What happens as you are sleeping? I was being pulled from illogical world to illogical world, with you at the center of them all.
I was dreaming. The brain processes in mysterious ways when we sleep.
Does it serve a purpose? It was such disorienting and fragmented thought. Random images and sensations.
No one is completely sure what it does. There are theories, but every human dreams. Many other mammals, too.
Is it enjoyable?
It can be. We can experience impossible joy, and also impossible terror in our dreams. Sometimes I can fly. Sometimes I hold someone who can't reach her. Sometimes I'm in my underwear, defending my doctoral thesis. It's a mixed bag.
Your biofeedback indicates that flying is the most enjoyable dream. I therefore hope you have many more of those. Mainly for my own safety. I have detected an energy signature of some strength. I am not sure what it is for.
Go ahead and share it. Can't hurt.
Signal location uploaded to PDA.